So there's some key components in this definition. One is deliberate. Public relations as a process is very deliberate. We consider what we're going to do and we intentionally pursue something. It's very thoughtful. Yes? I'll put this online later, but I want to be able to, we have so much to cover, but for sure. So the deliberate process is an important thing to consider, because if you lose sight of the fact that public relations is deliberate, it's considered, it's part of a strategic process, your entire approach to the industry changes. It's also planned. So not only are we deliberate, we don't get there and strategize for nothing, we order out how we're going to approach something. We come up with a plan of when things are going to happen, the order of communication, who's going to say what, and we anticipate different dynamics. It's performance-based. Sometimes people think you can't measure public relations because it's all about people. But public relations is really about performance. There's an action that takes place. So it's something we're doing in the industry with people. Maybe we are trying to change their values, opinions, beliefs, or behaviors. But there's some level of performance within public relations. It's not just based in theory. It has real-life application. So any definition needs to include that. Also, it has to be about the public interest. A definition of public relations that loses sight of the fact that it's mutually beneficial for people loses sight of a key component of public relations. We have the public interest at heart. That's why our ethics are so important, because it goes back to how we interact with people, how we utilize communication models, and the type of campaigns we'll run. Two-way communication. You're going to see when we get to the history section that we have not always approached public relations as two-way. Sometimes it feels almost like a class lecture, right? Someone just pours information at you. But the type of communication that's really dynamic, that leads to change, is the kind that's two-way, where I interact with you, you respond, and there's that feedback loop. Does that make sense? Yeah, see, that's two-way. I'll ask, I'll wait, and if I don't quite think that you're tracking, I'll do it all over again, and we'll see how it goes. And it's a management function. Public relations is best accomplished when it's at the management level. If you have no voice in the management process, in the life of an organization, you can't really fulfill all of the role that public relations is designed to, because you have no voice in the overview of what direction the organization is going to take, how they determine to communicate those objectives, or even how they respond back to their core values. So you really want to have a management function. Now, I want to put the caveat on that, because I've had some graduates come back to me and say, I am not in a management role. It is true. When you graduate and you get your first jobs, it doesn't mean you're going to be a manager. But as an organizational structure, you want public relations to have a management function in that organization. Most likely, it'll be people above you who have been there for years. But you do want to find a place where it's valued at the management level. Does those all make sense to you guys? Okay. So career sets that your reading talked about, writing. Writing is huge in public relations. It is something that is kind of our bread and butter, because we write across multiple platforms. Now, a lot of you may be in the PR emphasis here at Biola within journalism and integrated media. I actually see that as a big value, because you're learning to write journalistically. But a PR person does not only write journalistically. When you start adding up all of the different areas you write in, you get a very big picture. For example, writing for social media is very different than writing for the New York Times, which is very different than writing a speech for someone, which is different than writing an opinion article, which is different than writing a company report, which is different than writing a PR campaign proposal. You have to understand all the different functions of those pieces and how to write well for them. Because if you are fulfilling your role as a PR person, people are going to come to you and say, can you create this? And you need to know what the purpose of that piece is and how to write correctly. You can tell organizations who are new to social media when they post exactly what they would post on their blog on Facebook. It's just not how Facebook works, right? Or when you see people posting on Twitter and it's linked to something longer, but it cuts off mid-sentence, it doesn't look like it was quite designed for Twitter, like it was multi-used. Or when someone's giving a speech and you can tell someone else wrote it because it's stilted and they have to look down, and you're kind of thinking, well, don't you know what you're about to say? A good PR person, someone who's writing speeches for someone, knows the vernacular of that person, knows how to make it comfortable and how to make it flow, because words are powerful. They're an incredible tool, and when you can use them well, they're very dynamic, and when you use them poorly, they have horrible results. Research is also a big skill in public relations. Your campaigns will rise or fall on your ability to research well. Because when you find campaigns that didn't quite work out, usually you can track it back to the fact that they didn't know their audience. Maybe they didn't create a strong objective that actually worked. Maybe they never even researched the different areas that they needed to communicate to, or the company that they were working with. But often, whatever the case is, it goes back to the research phase. And that's why it's so important for public relations people. We know how to research. We know how to find about publics, about organizations, about communication models, about new technology. That's important. Planning, obviously, we talked about that. You want to be able to plan. I'm very type A. I get so excited when I have like 5 calendars and I can write all my appointments on all of the calendars. That's because I love planning and I love the big picture. My husband's type B. He would prefer never to have a calendar, and he's okay with that. And so I make our calendar for us. But as a PR person, you probably want to be thinking about planning because you want that big view. Even if you're not like me and have 5 calendars, you want to get into the process of being able to have that big picture, that long-term planning. Problem solving. Public relations does a lot of problem solving. Now there's 2 kinds of problem solving you can really engage in. One is a problem that exists. Your company will come to you and say, you know what, here's the issue, we need you to do something about it. But there's also problems that could exist. And as a PR person, you deal with the problems that do exist, and you try to anticipate all the problems that could exist and create up with contingencies, and maybe even make it so those ones never come into reality. Because of your communication process, because of a campaign you rolled out, those problems were never things you had to deal with. But you have to be aware. There's problems that exist, and there's problems that could exist, right? Business and economics, obviously, we are a business function. Organizations need public relations. We function in the business world, so you need to understand things like how much does it cost to hire a PR person? What is the value? What ROI, return on investment, do you bring to that organization? Why should a company hire a PR person and a marketing person? What if they have a huge advertising division? How do you work together? These are questions that are looking at the bottom line, the function, and how it plays out in business. PR people who are experts at their industry, who are highly desirable, who get a lot of jobs, tend to understand those dynamics really well and can articulate it. Because when you get in an interview, you want to be able to show that you have business knowledge, that you know how you play in the world of business. Social media expertise is a rising thing that's also expected among public relations professionals. There used to be this argument of, well, is public relations really social media, or is that more marketing? What do you guys think? We're going to work on this two-way communication. Yeah.
I think it's more PR because a lot of times through social media, you're not trying to get people to buy things, but just like more explain like what's going on with the company or like what new things are involved or coming out.
Good. Yeah.
And just be more personal. So does it, like she said, it's not advertising, it's just like connecting with the audience.
Yeah.
Could it be both? Because with marketing, you're kind of advertising your company, not to get people to buy into your product or whatever, but to get people to at least buy into the idea of your product or your company.
Good. Good. Yeah.
I think social media is actually a form of research, or it can be, because you want to know what different publics are responding to whatever your cause is. And really good way to find out is social media. You know, YouTube, Twitter, people are opinionated everywhere.
Yeah, they are. Good. All of you had such strong areas, which is a good point. It is very conversational. It's very relational, and that's why PR people care. It is also a unique intersection of marketing and PR. We actually both are there, and that's why we need to kind of break down the barriers a little bit between marketing and PR, because we work so much together in today's technological era, and it is a great place for research. You can find out so much through social media. All right, so let's talk about communication. This is the basic level of what PR people are doing. We are managing communication, so you need to understand what communication looks like in a very simplified way. Now, this model is one that's been criticized because people say it's too simplified. This is true. It could be too simplified. It kind of is when you want to talk about all of the multiple facets. But it does give you an insight into how to look at communication. So here's one example. You have a sender, and there's a message there's a channel, and there's a receiver. So right now, I am the sender of communication. I'm talking. And the message is about public relations, right? The channel is in person, and you are functioning as a receiver. If you were watching the Super Bowl last night, the sender was whatever channel, whatever network you were part of. The message was the Super Bowl. The channel was through television. That's what it was. And the receiver was you. If you go to chapel, the speaker is the sender. The message is what they're talking about. The channel is in person if you're watching it, or if you didn't go and you're doing chapel makeups, then it's the audio file you're playing. And the receiver would be you. This is a very basic model of communication, but there's something really big that's missing, especially from a public relations standpoint. Anyone know what it is? Yeah.
The response to the message.
Good. The feedback. Without feedback, it cannot be a two-way communication cycle. It's only one way. It's someone sending information out over some platform to someone. But a basic part of public relations is that two-way, that feedback, that understanding of the audience. So when you start to look at communication and you start to look at your campaigns and how it's going to function, be thinking, who's sending it? Because that's a big question. Sometimes we start looking for opinion leaders, or we choose celebrities to endorse certain products. And we do that because we're saying, who's the best person to deliver our message for us? And what is a channel? Do we want that celebrity to put an ad in a magazine and have their face there and like a caption bubble? Would we like them to endorse it on social media? Do we want them to do a television ad? What channel? And who are we sending it to? And once we do it, how did they respond? Should we do that again, or should we change it up? So the PR process is something you then read about. And the reading talks about RACE, research, action, communication, evaluation. This is kind of the rhythm of public relations, if you will. When you decide to get into something and do PR, this is a process you follow. Now, you guys are doing so good at taking notes. I'm about to change it up on you. Your reading says RACE, very similar, but I like to use RPI. I think it makes more sense. And it's the exact same thing. You're doing research, but programming is the next phase, and I think that'll make more sense as we dive into it a little more. Implementation, evaluation, and there's a fifth step that I want you to consider. That's the idea of stewardship. Once you form relationships in public relations, you don't just drop it and start again at the beginning. You cultivate those relationships. Now, this is a key concept with fundraising especially, but you could also see it with any sort of relationship. Community relations, for example, if you are working in a community, just because one campaign ends doesn't mean you forget all of those relationships. You carry that into your next campaign. And that's the idea of stewardship in this, is taking care of those relationships, showing that it's a value to the community still, showing that you understand that dynamic. And we'll talk more about that as we get into the different stages in the coming weeks. So if you're in journalism, you might have heard some of the questions of how does PR and journalism relate, where are they interacting, what makes PR different, and then your reading walked through public relations, marketing, and advertising. This is just a little clip to show maybe some of the differences you might think of with journalism and PR.
Hi, I'm PR.
And I'm journalism.
So tell me, why do you feel you need help?
I think it's because our relationship has some major issues.
I think it's more like we need a checkup. A look under the hood.
See, you're doing it again.
Doing what?
Spinning. Why do we need the car metaphors?
And what are some of those issues?
Well, let's see. She calls me all hours of the night. She changes a story 10 minutes before it's due. And that's if the story's even worth reporting. I mean, Fluffy the cat stuck up a tree. Boy in Lego
I think
disaster.
you're being sarcastic. Is it that sarcasm?
How can you tell?
Let's do an exercise. Pick up the masks on the table in front of you.
Oh, I get the black one. Because I look so good in black.
Because you're the dark side.
The dark side? Why am I the dark side?
Because you spin everything.
It's because you feel the need to change everything I tell you.
That's because everything you tell me is boring.
Okay. Go ahead and put on the masks. We are going to role play. Go ahead and act out some of these issues. I'll watch.
Hi, I'm PR.
And I'm journalism.
Hey, I've got another story for you.
Are you serious? It's nearly 4 o'clock. I've got to make deadline. Make it quick.
Cat stuck in tree.
No.
Bird stuck in tree.
Birds live in trees.
Dog stuck in tree.
Is that all you've got? I'm not that desperate. Why are all your stories about animals? I thought you were PR, not Pixar.
That's very interesting.
So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the tensions that sometimes are felt in the industry. Now I think it's a little exaggerated, but both sides showed maybe some harder issues. So let's talk about the scope, objective, audience, and channel, the differences. The scope of journalism is to find news, right? They are looking for news and reporting on it. That's what they encompass. For public relations, we do journalism interaction when we do media relations, but we also do things like events and community things. We do branding. We sometimes partner with marketing and advertising. So our scope is a lot wider than just news and media. So for journalism, they have a very specific scope. PR is much broader. The objectives then for journalists is to find that news and to tell it in an objective way that informs you about the situation. But public relations is all about advocating. So that's where sometimes that tension can come in, because journalists want objectivity and PR people are advocates for a certain cause, organization, endeavor. And that's where tension is. The audience is typically mass for journalism, right? So if someone writes, there's a journalist and he writes for the LA Times, it's the LA Times. It's not LA Times for moms and 25 under, LA Times for people who are CEOs, LA Times for teenagers. It's just the LA Times. But public relations, our audiences are always segmented because we want to know what they think, how they behave, and how they respond. So audience for journalism is mass. It's segmented for public relations. The channel is typically one. So a reporter has an outlet. It'll either be NBC, LA Times, New York Post, something like that. But for public relations, we use a lot of channels. We don't just have to go through mass media. We can use so many different ways of communication. So to recap, the scope is to find news. Their objective is to report it in a fair and unbiased way. The audience is mass, and the channel is through their news outlet. For us, the scope is really broad. We're looking at a number of different audiences, both internal and external. Our objectives are to be advocates, to influence values, opinions, beliefs, and behaviors, build mutually beneficial relationships. Our audiences are very segmented. We never do mass. That's a sure sign that your campaign's going to have problems. And our channels are multiple. Does that make sense? All right. So one we often get equated with is advertising. You'll say, I'm in PR. They say, great, I need some advertising. It's not the same thing. We differ in scope, audience, objective, and channels again. The scope of advertising, they're looking at consumers, external consumers of either a product or a service. Their audience is going to be semi-mass, a large group, because they're trying to get it out. Their objective, I switched that, is to help sell a product, is to help sell a service. They want to develop that relationship, that specific relationship. And their channel is whatever medium they choose to advertise in. But it has to be a medium that has advertising, right? So typically, I wouldn't walk in and start advertising, but I could be a spokesperson for something. So you want to understand the scope, audience, objective, and channels. Compared to public relations, again, our scope is broad. We're not only concerned with the external consumers, it's also internal, it's community, there's so many more dynamics. Our audiences are segmented because we don't use a mass channel to get it out. Our objective is advocacy, not necessarily consumers. And the channels are multiple. You guys following? Okay. PR versus marketing. The scope is that marketing, again, is concerned with that consumer relationship. And there's a definition that your reading provided that I'll put on the board in a minute that I think really helps highlight that. Because sometimes PR people almost want to say, oh, well, all you care about is selling. That's not true. That's not marketing. You have to really appreciate the role of marketing because it's hard work and there's a lot to do in it. But it is different. They are really concerned about that relationship with the people who take products or services and building that. And again, PR is much broader. I'm okay if you don't buy our service, though I would like it, but I still want you to think we're a good brand. The objective then is very similar. Both public relations and marketing wants to see the organization thrive. They're approaching it from different directions because they have different purposes and functions within an organization. But their objective is still to advocate for that organization. The audience. If you've been in any marketing classes, you know marketing people segment really well. There's a lot the public relations industry learns from marketing people because they know how to target amazingly well. And they also use multiple channels. You can tell that there's a lot of similarities here. There's differences, but they're nuanced. And that's probably why there's such a misunderstanding between something being marketing or something being public relations. So let's examine that a little further, because as you go into the industry, you're going to find there's a lot of crossover. When I first got into the industry, I was at a place that I did marketing and PR. That's very common, but they're different functions. This is the definition your reading talked about. Marketing is the management process whose goal is to attract and satisfy customers or clients. So that's what their objective is, right? They want to attract and satisfy customers or clients on a long-term basis. It's not just that one-time exchange. It's not just in response to one advertisement. They're really concerned with that relationship. And they want to achieve an organization's economic objectives. If the organization cannot have its services or products provided, it's not going to thrive. That's why a marketer understands that they have to make that relationship work because it's an economic objective. Its fundamental responsibility is to build and maintain markets for an organization's products or services. Just with public relations, you're also going to find a lot of different definitions for marketing. This is just one that hopefully helps you kind of conceptualize a bit about how we're different. We're very similar. We both want our organizations to succeed. We both segment audiences. We both use multiple channels. But public relations goes beyond just customers or clients in the long-term relationship and looks at other publics, including internal publics like employees and customer service. Make sense? Okay. So one of the things you want to understand is, how does public relations and marketing work together? In what ways do they interact? Well, one of the ways is that public relations can develop new prospects for marketers. When we do something with journalists and our story is picked up and run, that may attract new customers that marketers would then be able to follow up with based on the public relations efforts. We can also obtain third-party endorsements, people who say this is a great product, this is a great service. That is a big part about public relations. PR people care about endorsements because they're a statement about values, opinions, beliefs, and behaviors, and it's from someone outside the organization. That's a big deal. But it's also helpful to marketers who are trying to say that they have a good product or service, so we can contribute to each other. Through our campaigns, we might generate leads. Ideally, that would be a healthy relationship. Ideally, you're with an organization that's so fantastic, you want to generate leads. You want more people to participate in whatever service or product they have. Media relations we touched on, but it also helps the brand and awareness. And then PR people can set up the brand as an authority. So for example, when I am looking for a good household product, if I want something that's gentle or if there's kids involved, I would probably look towards Johnson & Johnson. Why? I don't know, other than the fact that they have good shampoo for babies that doesn't make them cry, and surely they'd have something else. That's great brand authority right there. I have no idea if they even have what I'm looking for, but I would go to them first, right? Or if I really want a good cooking product, there's probably certain brands you would go to and check. That's brand authority. And public relations is about building brands. Because when you have a question, I want you to come to my brand, my organization. I want you to think that we're trustworthy and that we're the kind of group that would create something like that.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.